Hello students, welcome to my live teaching learning session of Mmpc003 Business Environment. In today's session, we will discuss about Unit 3, Unit 11, 12, 13, 14 and Block 3 and 4. Both blocks will be covered in this session. The main topics which is in Block 3 and 4, the topics are like new economic policy and structural reform. Next is international business environment and technological environment. IMF means International Monetary Fund and WTO, World Trade Organization, balance of payment, foreign trade, and sources of global financing. All these topics we will cover in today's session. First of all, we will discuss about new economic policy and what are the various structural reforms which followed in 1991 NEP, New Economic Policy. You know that business environment is a very broader concept in which social environment, political environment, economic environment, and technological environment, legal environment, all types of these environments are included in business environment. And business, which is mainly affected by so many things like government policies, rules and regulations, legal rules, and political conditions, political atmosphere, political stability, technological advancement, upgradation, and research and development, and environmental, so many aspects affects business organizations. We have discussed in earlier sessions like industrial policy of 1948, 56, 77, 1980s, 1991. All these topics are related with your business environment syllabus. So in today's session, first of all, in Block 3, Unit 11, in this unit, new economic policy will be discussed. Now, what is new economic policy? New economic policy is known as economic reform time period. The process of economic reforms was started by the government of India in 1991 for taking the country out of economic difficulty and speeding up the development of the country. The center of economic reforms has been three. One is liberalization, second is privatization, and third is globalization. This policy is also known as LPG policy. Here, what is the meaning of LPG? LPG refers to liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Economic reforms initiated in 1991. In this time period, our Indian economy was in crisis situation. And why this crisis occurred? What are the main reasons behind the occurrence of economic crisis during 1991? The Gulf War, which held in between of Iran and Iraq, that was the main cause of originated this economic crisis in Indian economy. So the process of economic reforms started by the government in which year? 1991. And this LPG policy, liberalization, privatization, and globalization, this 1991 time period has divided all time period into two categories. One is pre-reform period and other is post-reform period. The time period after 1991 onwards is known as post-reform period, and before 1991 time period is known as pre-reform period. Post-independence, at the time of independence during 1950s, at that time whatever policies made by government, in that policies government adopted mainly socialism, focuses on socialism or public sectors. Otherwise, we know that Indian economy is a mixed economy in which public sector and private sector both are coexist in it. But the balance in between of private sector and public sector not exist in each and every plan of the country, because sometimes government mainly emphasize on public sector and only one lopsided emphasized given by the government in different economic policies. So at that time, 1950s time period adopted socialism. Government sector was playing very important role at that time. The role of private sector was very less. An increase in exports, agriculture sector was the predominant sector in the Indian economy, and business was mainly regulated by the government. In between of 1960s to 1980s, at that time, government was controlling all the economic activities. The main lead role of the public sector was playing important role in all the economic activities of the country. And at that time, you know that in 1966, a green revolution was introduced, which is known as new agriculture strategy or packaging of all agricultural inputs. And before green revolution, India was the importer of food grains. But after introduction of this green revolution, India becomes self-independent in food crops. At present, India is exporting food grains to rest of the world instead of importing these items. And 1990 onwards, economic reforms brought in by them. Then at that time, during 1990s or 91, at that time, Prime Minister was P.V. Narasimha Rao and the Finance Minister was Manmohan Singh, Dr. Manmohan Singh. So at that time, as a Finance Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh adopted this new economic policy in which three main tools were used. One is liberalization, second is privatization, and third is globalization. Liberalization means to open up the economy for rest of the world. To open up the economy without imposing more restrictions, more barriers, government liberalize the economy and give free or some liberal policies to the business entrepreneurs for expanding their business activities. And at that time, privatization, government mainly emphasized private sectors, and the role of public sector was less, and the role of private sector was increased during 1991 economic policy. And globalization means to increase the integral relationship with rest of the world. At present, Indian economy is globalized economy. At present, we are integral. We are integrated with rest of the world, and integral relationship with rest of the world is increasing. At present, technical inflow, outflow, communication inflow, outflow, labor inflow, outflow, money inflow, outflow is very easily possible among different nations, and at present all things are globalized and liberalized. So this LPG policy is very important policy because with the adoption of this policy, our economy is going in various changes, and business sector is expanding. Lots of business activities are developing at a very faster rate. Now, what is new economic policy? New economic policy was adopted by a government of India in 1991 or July 1991. Its main purpose was to increase the productivity and efficiency of the economy and to improve it, increases the competition and decreases the restrictions or barriers. It creates more competitive environment. And why we need of this new economic policy? What are the reasons behind the need of this new economic policy? The need of this new economic policy was that at that time our economy was suffering from economic crisis time period in 1991. At that time inflation rate was very higher, near about 16.7%. At that time fiscal deficit was very higher, near about 8.7%, and foreign exchange reserves was very less, which was sufficient only for 1 week imports or 10 days imports. At that time our economy was in debt trap situation, and balance of payment was unfavorable due to heavy imports and less exports. And at that time when Gulf War was occurring in between of Iran and Iraq, and India, you know, that major importer of petroleum, that's why here the prices of petroleum rise at that time. And in our country inflation rate was very higher, which was near about 16.7% in two-digit inflation rate, which affects Indian economy adversely. If mild inflation is exist in our economy, that is good for the country. But if inflation is at the very higher rate, that affects economic activities adversely. So these are the reason behind the occurrence of or adopted this new economic policy. Now next is components of new economic policy. What are the components? The components of this new economic policy are: number one is reforms in fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is that policy which is made by government, and the main tools of fiscal policy is: one is public revenue, second is public expenditure, third is public debt, and fourth is budget. So in this fiscal policy also reforms adopted by new economic policy. So this include reforms in taxation structure and expenditure pattern of the government to reduce the large fiscal deficit. Next is reforms in industrial policy. In new economic policy, these reforms include reduction in the role of public sector. In industrial sector, role of private sector was increased in 1991 and the role of public sector decreased in 1991 era. Deregulation and delicensing of the private sector industries. Public sector. Deregulation and delicensing of the private sector industries, liberalized policy towards foreign trade, and the limit of foreign direct investment was also increased in 1991 policy. Before 1991 industrial policy resolution, the limit of foreign direct investment FDI was only 40%, but in 1991 this limit increased from 40 to 51% in general and 74% for some specific industries, and 100% FDI is also permitted in some specific regions and specific areas. So reforms in trade policy also adopted in 1991 economic reform time period. Reduction in import duties, which is known as tariffs. Import taxes are known as tariffs, and at that time there was government taken the step that government reduces the import duties or tariffs. Next is financial sector reforms. In this financial sector reforms, it includes SLR. SLR is statutory liquidity ratio. CRR is cash reserve ratio. All banking sector reforms were taken by the government in 1991 economic policy. And capital market revolution was also initiated to strengthen the economy. So these are the main components of new economic policy. In this new economic policy, not only industrial reforms were taken, here fiscal reforms in which public expenditures and taxation policy reforms also taken by the government, reforms in industrial policy, reforms in trade policy, reforms in financial sector, and reforms in capital market. All these reforms are the main components of this new economic policy, which positively impact the Indian economy. And at that time, by adopting this policy, our economy get benefited, and we overcome the situation of economic crisis. Effects of new economic policy. You know that each and everything has some pros and cons, same as economic policy has also some positive impact and negative impact. If we evaluate the performance of this new economic policy, then we can explain with the help of its positive and negative impacts. What are the various positive impacts of new economic policy? New economic policy mainly increases in GDP growth rate. Next is it increases FDI limit. FDI is foreign direct investment, which is very necessary for improving our manufacturing sector, and the main sector, it's more capital intensive technology is needed that can be compensated with the help of foreign direct investment. An extension of privatization adopted by government in 1991 policy. Increase in foreign exchange reserves, increase in per capita income, increase in mobility of factors of production, because in this policy we have adopted globalization, liberalization. That's why mobility or inflow, outflow, outsourcing, all these things can be possible only with the help of globalization. And the restrictive attitude of the government converted in liberalization, or government liberate or freely give permission for trade. But it has some negative impacts also. It neglects agriculture sector, because in this new economic policy, government mainly emphasized industrial policies reforms, trade policies reforms, capital market reforms, fiscal policy reforms, and foreign trade reforms, but not emphasized on agriculture sector. That's why in this policy there was a neglect of agriculture sector. This is the negative impact of this new economic policy. No relief of poverty and no success of removing unemployment, because industrial growth in this privatization sector was emphasized, and you know that private sector mainly use capital intensive technology for the rapid increase in production level. When we use more capital intensive technology instead of labor intensive technology, then employment will not generate. When employment will not generate, then how can we solve unemployment problem? So unemployment removal actions were not taken in this policy. No poverty reduction, no poverty relief was exist at that time. and there was not any given focus on agriculture sector and its adverse impact on savings and competition from multinational corporations. Domestic industries are domestic industries given preference to compete with multinational corporations, and Indian small scale industries badly affected by this policy because large, big multinational corporations entered in Indian economy and large scale industries were promoted in private sectors. At that time, small scale industrial development were hampered badly. So these are positive and negative impacts of new economic policy 1991. Now next is what is the WTO? You know that in this unit we will discuss all these topics like new industrial policy of 1991 or new economic policy 1991, and next is international business environment. In international business environment, we must have to understand the role of WTO and the role of IMF, because WTO at present play very important role. It regulates all the terms and conditions, all the international trade businesses under the terms and conditions of WTO. All business firms who are engaged in international trade, they must have to follow the rules and regulations which is decided or which is given by WTO. So before the introduction of WTO, it was related with GATT. GATT means GATT, General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs. GATT was established in 1949, and India was the founder member of GATT. At that time, near about 23 countries were member countries. But GATT was related with narrow aspects of the business rules and regulations. WTO is a very broader concept, and GATT was converted into WTO in 1st January 1995. Global international organizations dealing with the rules of trade between nations. It established in 1st January 1995. Its location, its main head office is in Switzerland, Geneva, and membership at present near about 160 and more than 160 countries are the member countries of WTO. But when GATT was established, at that time only 23 countries were the member countries. And what are the main functions of WTO? The main functions of WTO are like first is administering WTO trade agreements. WTO generally administered the trade agreements which held among different nations for bilateral trade and multilateral trade agreements. Forum for trade negotiations, handling trade disputes which occur generally among the different nations while doing international trade. And one is dispute settlement board. WTO has established a dispute settlement board which solve the problem of disputes which arises among different nations while doing international trade businesses. And it monitors national trade policies and technical assistance and training for developing countries provided by WTO and cooperation with other international organizations. So these are the main functions of WTO. So WTO play a very important role in international trade businesses, and those business enterprises, those nations who are engaged in international business activities and international trade, they must have to follow the terms and conditions of WTO. Next is what is the difference between IMF and World Bank. You know that all these are international organizations, international institutions, which mainly give positive effects to the different countries. International Monetary Fund provides loans to the countries up to 75% of their quota in IMF. But World Bank provide loans to the countries up to only 20% of their paid up capital in World Bank. So basically, IMF works as the controller of currency exchange rate and helps countries in maintaining balance of payment. World Bank basically works as a bank which provide long-term loans and helps countries in developing itself. So this is the difference between IMF and World Bank. Now next topic is balance of payment. Balance of payment is a systematic record of all economic transactions of exports and imports. A balance of payment is a systematic record of all economic transactions like visible items of trade, invisible items of trade, multilateral trade. So balance of payment is a record which includes mainly three accounts. One is current account, second is capital account, and third is official reserve account. In current account, it has three components, three subparts. One is visible items of exports and imports. Visible items are known as merchandise goods, which can be seen, which can be touchable. And invisible items are those items which can't be seen or touchable, but these items are known as services like banking, insurance, transportation, communication, etc. And third is unilateral transfers. Unilateral transfers are one-sided transfers which is related with one or lopsided transactions like gifts, grants, donation, scholarship, old age pension. All these payments or transfers are related with unilateral or one-sided or lopsided transfer of funds. So current account include three things. One is visible items of exports and imports like goods. Second is invisible items of exports and imports like services. And third is unilateral transfer of funds. Now next component of balance of payment is capital account. Capital account, as it is clear by its name, that it includes all capital transactions which is related with short time period or long time period, banking capital, portfolio investment, foreign direct investment, gold reserves. All types of capital are included in capital account. So capital account is a record of direct investment, portfolio investment. Portfolio investment refers to paper title documents of or financial investment which is in form of shares, bonds, debentures. Who have the possession of these paper title documents, only they will benefit it from this financial investment. So portfolio investment is related with paper title documents like shares, bonds, debentures, etc. And short-term capital movement to and from countries. All these things are included in capital account. And third is official reserve account. Official reserve account is a record of exports and imports of gold. Increases or decreases in foreign exchange and increases or decreases in liabilities to foreign central banks. So all these three components included in balance of payment. So of the three, the current account is of primary interest of international business. So balance of payment is a systematic record of all economic transactions like visible and invisible items of exports and imports. And balance of payment includes or components of balance of payment are three. One is current account, second is capital account, and third is official reserve account. Now next is balance of payment has two accounts mainly. One is current and other is capital. In current account, it includes items of visible or merchandise or goods, exports and imports. So trade in goods like exports of goods, imports of goods are included in visible items of trade. And trade in services is known as invisible items of trade, in which we include all services like banking, shipping corporation, insurance, tourism, software services, etc. And third is unilateral transfers or transfer payments. It consists of gifts, remittances, and grants. So these are the subparts of current account, in which three main components included. One is visible, second is invisible, and third is unilateral transfers. Now next is features of balance of payment. What are the various features of balance of payment, or what are the characteristics of balance of payment? You know that balance of payment is a systematic record of all economic transactions of visible and invisible items of exports and imports. It includes all transactions. It related with a specific period of time, not a point of time, because it's flow concept, and it adopts a double entry bookkeeping system. Balance of payment generally based on double entry system. Each and every transaction has two sides. One is debit and other is credit. So balance of payment in an accounting sense remains always in balance or favorable. But in practical sense or in operational sense, it may be favorable or may not be. But in an accounting sense, it remains always favorable or in balance because it is based on double entry system. And next is when receipts are equals to payment, the balance of payment is in equilibrium position. Otherwise, balance of payment may be unbalanced or in disequilibrium position. So balance of payment in an accounting sense, which is based on double entry system, will always be in balance, but operationally or practically, it may be balanced or may not be. So these are the main features of balance of payment. Now next is balance of payment and balance of trade. What is the difference between these two concepts? Balance of payment, we have studied about this thing that balance of payment is a systematic record of all transactions like visible and invisible items of trade, exports and imports. And balance of trade is a narrow concept. It includes only visible items of exports and imports, not invisible item. It means balance of trade includes only visible items of exports and imports, or merchandise or goods, which can be seen, which can be touchable. But balance of payment includes both the items of trade like visible and invisible, like goods and services. Both are included in balance of payment. So balance of payment is a broader concept and balance of trade is a narrow concept. Balance of trade does not record transactions of capital nature, but balance of payment records transactions of capital nature, and it includes all the transactions Either it may be related to current nature or capital nature or official reserve system. All these things are included in balance of payment. That's why balance of payment is a broader concept and balance of trade is a narrow concept. Balance of trade is a part of current account of BOP, but balance of payment includes BOT, balance of services, balance of unrequited transfers or unilateral transfers, balance of capital transactions. All these things are included in balance of payment. Balance of payment has two accounts, mainly two accounts, but generally it has three accounts. One is current account, second is capital account, third is official reserve account. And balance of trade is a part of balance of payment, but balance of payment includes balance of trade and others like balance of services, balance of unilateral transfers and capital transactions, current transactions. All things are included in BOP. So this is the basic difference between balance of payment and balance of trade. Now next is international financial system. International financial system. What is the meaning of international financial system? When financial system provide financial facilities to internationally, not only domestically, that is called international financial system. So market for converting currency of one country into that of other is foreign exchange market. Foreign exchange market is that market at which you can convert one country's currency in terms of other country's currency. How the rate of foreign exchange is determined at present? You know that at present flexible exchange rate system is going on, but before the origin of flexible exchange rate system, there was fixed exchange rate system exist in the economy, which mainly fixed exchange rate with the help of gold standard. Gold was standardized currency at that time, but at present fixed exchange rate system is not going on. It has abolished. At present flexible exchange rate system is going on, which is fixed by the intersection of demand and supply of currencies, and demand and supply of currencies is influenced by respective countries' relative inflation rates and interest rates. So foreign exchange market mainly perform two functions. One is it convert currency of one country into currency of other, and to provide some insurance against foreign exchange risk. So these are the main functions of foreign exchange market. And foreign exchange rate is that rate at which you can convert one country's currency into another country's currency, and market is a place where these transactions can be done. So foreign exchange market is that market where one country's currency can be converted into another country's currency. And it also provides some insurance and some risk coverage against foreign exchange risk, or it is known as hedging, which take over all the risk which involved in the transactions of these currencies. Now next is global financial system. Global financial system consisting of institutions and regulators that act on the international level, as opposed to those that act on a national or regional level. The main players of are the global institutions are like International Monetary Fund, IMF, next is Bank of International Settlements, next is national agencies and government departments, next is central bank and finance ministers, next is private institutions who act on the global scale like banks and hedge funds which take over all the risk which involve in transactions of international funds and regional institutions, Eurozone. So deficiencies and reforms of the global financial system have been discussed in recent years. So global financial system is a very broader concept in which all institutions which is related with financial activities and who are the regulators and who act on the international level all are included in global financial system. Now next is introduction to foreign trade. What is the meaning of foreign trade? Foreign trade is the trade or exchange of goods and services between two or more countries is known as international or foreign trade. So foreign trade mainly held in between of different nations while exporting or importing the goods and services. So foreign trade is a trade or exchange of goods and services between two or more countries is known as international trade or foreign trade. Foreign trade takes place on account of many reasons. At present, we know that all the countries are open countries, all the economies are open economies who have relationship with rest of the world. At present, all countries are engaged in international trade. They are exporting those goods which are they can produce in large quantity, and they can import those goods which are produced in their country in a very less quantity. So exports and imports are known as foreign trade. You know that at present population globally, the whole population of the world is increasing. As well as population increase, the demand for goods and services also increase. But we know that resources are always limited and wants are always unlimited. So human wants and countries resources may not totally coincide. So factor endowment are different in different countries, or in all countries resources or factors are not equally distributed. Some countries are rich in natural resources, some countries are rich in capital resources, and some countries are rich in human resources. There is a difference, large difference among these factors of production or all these factors. That's why all countries are still dependent for their requirement of the country people on other nations. That's why international trade held among different countries. Factor endowment in different countries differ, technological advancement of different countries differ, labor and entrepreneurial skill also differ in different countries, and factors of productions are not perfectly mobile among different nations or between the nations. That's why international trade play a very important role in at present all over the world. Now next is international trade. Why countries do international trade? International trade allows nations to produce a limited number of goods based on their resources while consuming a variety of goods. Comparative advantages: if you want to earn gains from trade, then you can engage in international trade. So the ability to produce a product most efficiently given all the other products it could produce. Law of comparative advantage, it means if a country is able to produce both the commodities in more quantity and other can produce both the commodities in less, but in this situation, both countries will enter in international trade and they will do exports and imports, and by doing this exports and imports, they will gain benefits from this international trade. So a nation is better off producing goods and services for which it has a comparative advantage. Generally, international trade benefit to those nations who are engaged in international trade if there is a comparative difference in cost exist in their nation, and if there is an absolute difference in cost exist in their countries. If there is an equal difference in cost exist in the country, then international trade will not be profitable, will not be held. But if there is an absolute difference in cost, if there is a comparative difference in cost exist in the different nations, then international trade will give definitely benefit to all the participant countries or trading partners. Now, foreign trade has played a very crucial role in India's economy and its growth. The composition and direction of foreign trade has undergone substantial change, particularly after the liberalization process, which began in early 1990s. Over the years, India's trade with other countries have gone up substantially. Apart from that, India is now a major player in global trading system, and all the major sectors of Indian economy are linked to the world outside, either directly or indirectly through international trade. And composition means the items of exports and imports, and direction means the countries of the different countries from which international trade is going on. So direction of foreign trade mainly tells us the countries to which India exports its goods and the countries from which India imports its goods. West Europe 28.1%, America 25.4%, Africa 6.3%, and East Europe 3.1%. This, if we are telling about different nations, from those nations, India is doing trade with these nations, that is the trading partners countries, and these trading partner countries are known as direction of foreign trade. And composition of foreign trade includes items of exports and imports. You know that India is a very old participant in world trade. Its participation have been promoted by the opening of Suez Canal and speedy development of shipbuilding industry, supplemented by the spread of industrial revolution in Europe and fast expansion of Indian railways. So composition mainly tells us about major commodities or sectors in which India is doing exports and imports. In composition of foreign trade, it is the combination of exports and imports items. Major portion of imports in India are in the areas of fuels, capital goods, chemicals, food grains, and exports are in the area of manufactured goods, textile, gems and jewelry, handicrafts, light machinery, etc. Now, technological environment. What is the meaning of this technological environment? You know that it's also the main part of business environment. Technological environment includes the methods, techniques, and approaches adopted for production of goods and services and its distribution. The varying technological environment of different countries affects the designing of products. For example, in USA and many other countries, electrical appliances are designed for 110 watts. But when these are made for India, they have to be 220 watts. In the modern competitive pace or age, the pace of technological changes is very fast. Hence, in order to survive and grow in the market, a business has to adopt the technological changes from time to time, because without adopting technological changes or technical advancement, we can't increase the production level in manufacturing sector. And if we want to grow at a very faster rate, that we have to pop up all the technological with the all changes which happening in technological sector. We have to follow those changes in technological environment, so that we can increase the productivity level of the business organization. So in the competitive world age, the pace of technological changes is very fast, and hence in order to grow and survive in the market, a business firm has to adopt the technological changes from time to time. And it may be noted that scientific research for improvements and innovations in product and services is a regular activity in most of the big industrial organizations. Nowadays, in fact, no firms can afford to persist with the outdated technologies. So technological environment is very necessary for the development of industrial sector and growing economy at a very faster rate. Next is main problems and issues facing technology, environment and policy in India. The main problem is that heavy dominance of government in technology department. That's why it takes too much time of the adoption of this new technology. Conditions of stagnation in technological research, low rate of technology commercialization, weak intellectual regime, limited import of technology due to restrictive trade policies exist in India. In India, there is no free trade policy, and inferior proposition of Indian partner, import of outdated and inappropriate technology, and little emphasis on technological assimilation and absorption. So these are the main problems and issues which mainly facing by technology environment and the policy in India. Now next is technological development and social change. Development of new technologies, new inventions reflects changing in knowledge, beliefs and norms and new standard of livings. Women at present are engaged in differentiated tasks, differentiated earning, new home appliances. This is the social change. Transport, communication made suburbanization possible. Films, TV, radio have become very helpful in transmission and diffusion of information, reduction of social distance. More industrialized and materialistic society, severe blow to casteism. AC, dams, changes in natural environment, and also have adverse impact like pollution, global warming. So technical advancement play both roles in a positive aspects and in a negative aspects. It has some positive and negative both the aspects. If we use green technologies, eco-friendly technologies in business enterprises, then it will give positive impact. And if we use that technologies which hampering the environment, that will create pollution and global warming, and that will make change in natural environment. So we should use green technology, eco-friendly technology, and we should change in society which give positive impacts on the growth of the country, not adversely impact. Next is government schemes. In 2014-15, what are the various government schemes which launched by the government of India for the welfare of the whole society or whole country people, like Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. It launched by the government on 28th August 2014. PM Jiva Jyoti Bima Yojana launched on 9th May 2015, and Atal Pension Scheme was launched on 9th May 2015. Swachh Bharat Abhiyan launched on 2nd October 2014. Krishi Ambani Bima Yojana launched on May 2014. There are different schemes and different programs launched by Indian government for the welfare of the country people and for the boost up the economy and for the well-being of the whole society. So these are different schemes. You must have to know about all these names and their launching time period. You must have to remember this thing. So Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Jiva Jyoti Bima Yojana, Atal Pension Yojana, Swachh Bharat Mission, Krishi Ambani Bima Yojana, Digital India, Make in India, Skill India, Kisan Vikas Patra, Sukanya Samriddhi Account, Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana, Deen Dayal Upadhyay Shramev Yojana, Swadesh Darshan, and Indradhanush, and Jan Dhan Yojana, and Udan Project. All these schemes launched by the government of India for the welfare of the whole community and whole country people. Now next is at present 100% FDI. Government has given permission that 100% FDI is permitted without taking any permission from the government, with automatic route in railways infrastructure. FDI in defense increased to 49%. FDI in insurance increased to 49%. Government working on consensus building on GST, and you know that in 2014 government worked on GST, and you know that at present GST is going on, and all these programs and policies are given according to this time period which is mentioned, that 2014 government has followed these projects. Now next is meaning of FDI. You know that foreign direct investment means that if foreigners or multinational corporations invest their money in their host countries, like in India, that is called FDI. FDI stands for foreign direct investment, as a component of a country's national financial account. FDI is investment of foreign asset into domestic structures, equipment, and organization. It does not include foreign investment into stock market, because portfolio investment include stock market investment, not FDI. FDI is thought to be more useful to a country than investment in the equity of its companies, because equity investment are potentially hot money which can leave at the first sign of trouble, whereas FDI is durable and generally useful whether things go well or badly. And FDI means investment by non-resident entity or person in resident outside India in the capital of an Indian company under Schedule 1 of Foreign Exchange Management Act. Now, foreign direct investment has some pros and cons. Like foreign direct investment give benefits to the host country, and it diversifies investors' portfolios. It promotes long-term lending stability, and it provides financing to developing nations who have lack of capital formation. It fills the gap in between of saving and investment in developing countries, and it provides technology to the developing countries. These are the positive impact of FDI. But there are some cons and negative impacts also, like not suitable for strategically important industries, and investors may have less moral attachment to the host countries, and their investment is unethical, and they unethically access to local markets. These are the cons of foreign direct investment. Now, FDI and FII both are different from each other. FDI is a long-term investment, and FII, foreign institutional investment, is generally short-term investment. Now, business environment consists of all types of environment like personal, political, economic, and legal. Now, we can conclude from the today's session that environment in which we conduct international trade and global commerce today has been transformed by a series of factors that includes emerging global powers, technological progress, and shifts in priority that includes emerging global powers, technological progress. The trade and international business professionals of today cannot take a narrow based view of this specialized expertise but must look at context and be mindful of evolution and the speed of transformational changes. So, all these topics we have covered in this business environment MPC 003. Thank you.